text here that reads, I've noticed that Mr. Lindsley never deters from painting Ukraine in a positive light. Is it still journalism if there is never any scrutiny of what occurs around you? The sounds of a Ukrainian choir as we go live to Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine. Joe, where did this take place and when?
Bob, good afternoon from Kharkiv. This is a choir in Kharkiv on Saturday. I can't tell you exactly where because this was the event I told you about yesterday where there were maybe about 300 volunteers, just people from all different walks of life who have devoted themselves to working for Ukrainian victory. And at this event, soldiers were giving them medals and people were connecting and finding, still better ways to collaborate. And in the true Ukrainian spirit, even though it was during an air alarm here in Kharkiv, 30 miles to Russia, they always have music. And so there were a few choirs. And in fact, this choir also sang some great American spirituals to show their appreciation for the support of the United States, even though there only were 3 Americans in that room of 300 people. And it reminds me of what a Ukrainian friend who's an engineer and now a full-time volunteer, he said the freedom, the idea of freedom is embroidered in our songs, in our lives. And, it's such a deep part of the Ukrainian spirit, that culture and freedom go together. And that's really what I've seen here, especially in Kharkiv, the way, you go to the hotel lobbies or the cafes and you have Ukrainians and people from the United States and India and the UK, all over the world, collaborating in amazing ways to help. I was just talking with, I had coffee this morning with a friend of mine who I knew from before the war, a Ukrainian, and he was a bartender before the war. When Russia invaded, the full-scale invasion, February 24th, his girlfriend became a medic, and now he's her driver. And they left Kyiv. They permanently live in the east near the front lines. And their days are filled with whenever they get a notification that there are casualties, they hop in their vehicle and they race to the scene and give people the first aid they need and get them to hospitals. And so you see how everyone has really been transformed. And it's so strange to talk with people who I knew before the war. And you still sort of see the same person, but we've all changed our focus and mentality. And as my friend said, it's like we're living in an action hero movie every single day. And something you never imagined in your life. And it feels like a dream, but of course it's not, and it keeps going.
I can't imagine what that is like. As everyone knows, we get tremendous feedback from our listeners, so many emails and texts praising Joseph's reporting in Ukraine. And occasionally, a point of, you could call it criticism. Listen to this text here that reads, I've noticed that Mr. Lindsley never deters from painting Ukraine in a positive light. Is it still journalism if there is never any scrutiny of what occurs around you? Ask Joseph about the recent article in the New York Times. And then this listener, Joseph, sent me the story with the headline, Critics say a new media law signed by Zelenskiy could restrict press freedom in Ukraine. What do you know about this, and what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, well, it's a great point. At the end of last year, the Ukrainian parliament, the Rada, passed a law to create some kind of mechanism to control the press, the ostensibly to attack what they would call fake news. President Zelenskiy signed it, and the parliament and the people that pushed for the law said they're simply bringing themselves in accord with European standards. As a journalist and as an American, I'm pretty much a free speech absolutist. Even the United Kingdom has a press standards organization, which I deeply oppose because, I think the American founding fathers understood. In fact, James Madison said, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. But obviously, we don't live in the world of angels. And if ever, yes, there's lots of problems about, lies and fake news and all kinds of things. But if you ever give power to government officials, then they will forevermore have the ability to determine what is true and what's not. And you lose democracy as soon as you give up that power. And so I think that it's a major problem. Ukrainians, in fact, when I was at that gathering, so we were listening to the music at the beginning of this, and I wanted people to kind of feel what it was like to be there. But a common topic among the Ukrainian civil society, which is just regular people, civic leaders, volunteers, is fighting corruption. And they've been on that mission ever since the revolution of 2014, really. And in fact, a friend of mine said our government was not so important in the beginning of the war. 99% of the work was done by regular people. And so there is certainly unease about attempts to control media. I think when it comes to the way Ukrainians communicate on social media, it's an unstoppable force. In fact, the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine, they oppose this legislation. Actually, it's a law now. They oppose the law. They say such powers are clearly excessive. No one has yet managed to tame freedom of speech in Ukraine. It won't work this time either. And so there is this sort of confidence. You could call it the fourth branch of government in Ukraine is the Maidan, the public square. And I saw this during my time here in the pandemic. The government knew, unlike in some European countries, it couldn't lock people in their houses. You would have a revolution. And so there's always this dance between the people and those in power. And in the wartime, I mean, there's been a martial law declared only after Russia invaded February 24th, which has officially made some restrictions. But again, as a free speech, as a journalist, as a free speech absolutist, I think it is dangerous. And I have stories from friends who have been like Ukrainian political strategists who work with corruption fighters. And has been some concern that overzealous people, even in President Zelenskyy's administration, as any political operatives like to do, are trying to control things too much. So sometimes you might have a very popular politician like Vitaly Kim, the governor of Mykolaiv Oblast. And I've heard stories that people in Kyiv have told very popular middle-level politicians to tone themselves down so that there's not threats threats in the political sense to the government. And so always there is, the human nature doesn't change in the war. As a friend in Poland says, war verifies it. And so these things continue, and the battles against corruption continue. A lot of that corruption came from Moscow, but it still exists here. And unfortunately, some of the best corruption fighters, like the young activists, were the first people to sign up to go fight. And several of them, like my friend Roman Ratushny, have been killed. And so this is a very real problem. But overall, and I think what the Russian propaganda tries to say, this is why Ukraine, people shouldn't support Ukraine. Tucker Carlson says this, but this is not about the government. This is about the people who want to be free. If President Zelenskiy ever wanted to give up territory, I think the people would say that they need a new leader. So really, this is it's a fierce democracy, and that's what I defend. But yes, there's many things to investigate and explore, and I'm happy to address those as we talk every day.
We need truth tellers like you, and we need our checks and balances. And let me leave you with this text from a listener. Joseph is so eloquent, so astute, so compassionate, brings tears to my eyes. He should win a Peabody or a Pulitzer. And it's signed from a fellow and humbled Domer. That's what you Notre Dame grads call yourselves, right?
That's right. Go Irish.
It's Joseph Lind. Go ahead, Joe.
Onward to victory, as the Victory March says.
There you are. And we'll talk tomorrow. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important, that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?